can drive you to feel uncomfortable, it can drive you a lot of things, but pushing it down, makes you feel better, at least for a short period of time. Unfortunately, when it comes back up, it's hard. It's difficult for people.
So it's kind of on topic. One question that we received before we went live was, why do we differentiate between drugs and alcohol? And I mean, I can't give it, I don't know what the answer is, but it's, to me, when I hear a drug, I think of something that is, a no-no, something that if you get it, you got it in some way that you shouldn't have. Whereas alcohol, anyone who's over the age of 21 can go buy it wherever they want and consume it,
right.
And it's marketed to us. But in from a clinical perspective, when we're looking, or in a medical perspective, when we're looking at substances that we put in our body, alcohol is just is another drug.
Right. Yeah. It absolutely is. ETOH, and
ETOH
is the chemical. It's ethyl alcohol, and
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just
OH is the oxygen and the hydrogen, and I think, but I could have that way wrong.
The chemical for alcohol.
So
it's a chemical. It's a drug.
We're talking about self-prescribed things, right? And as Paris and I were talking about this, I was talking about caffeine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why isn't caffeine included in that? We're not asking people, although we do ask people about their caffeine use, and we do that for a different reason. But it's alcohol has been legal, whereas a lot of these other drugs haven't been. But we're talking about things that are generally self-prescribed, right? Alcohol, you're going out and you're dosing yourself with a certain level. You're not going to the doctor and asking them how much you can drink, or at least a lot of people aren't, right? They're going and drinking on their own. With marijuana, with cocaine, with club drugs, with benzos, with those sorts of things. Those are all drugs that you often won't be prescribed, but you'll be buying on the street and self-prescribing. So it's because alcohol is legal that we break it out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great question because it's a drug like anything else.
So we know that in the past, whenever the pandemic started, the past year and a half, and that the number of people consuming alcohol and abusing alcohol has skyrocketed. So this might sound almost like a easy question or a duh question, but why is that?
So people are feeling a lot of insecurity, right? They're staying at home, they're helping, and they have to teach their kids how to do things in school, while at the same time they're trying to work a job. They're afraid of getting sick. They're afraid that they're going to lose their, did I say that? Afraid they're going to lose their job.
They're lonely,
isolated, all kinds of
terrified.
Stuff. Yeah. So it's easy.
Bored. Sorry.
Yeah.
But there's so many reasons that people.
Well, here's one of the other ones is people are on camera. So like I could if you and I were on camera right now, you would be able to smell if I was drinking or not.
I mean, I've heard from.
Are you questioning that?
This is water. He's having coffee.
No,
I swear.
it looks good.
But
good. It does look. Anyway.
I mean, it's a clear liquid. It's water. No, that's a good point. I mean, I know several people who before COVID they consumed alcohol. They considered themselves social drinkers, and then during the pandemic, when they're on Zoom all day at work, it wasn't that happy hour. I'm done at work at 5:30. I'll start at 3:30 to I'm getting up and putting something in my morning coffee and drinking all day long.
Slip into bad habits.
Yeah, but it was, and this, there's no eyes on you. It was.
It's really true.
Yeah, and it really happened.
It really, I know people that's happened to, and unfortunately, when they try and stop, I've seen people have seizures. And with alcohol, you want to be real careful because it's one of two drugs that we are really, really careful with, alcohol and benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines are drugs like lithium and Valium and Xanax and those drugs. And alcohol, if in a detox, you can die of withdrawal from alcohol. Does it happen all the time? No, but it can, and if you're drinking continuously, that's when it's more likely to happen. So we're not telling people that have been drinking all day, every day, to just stop drinking. It's not such a great idea. You should seek medical help. We have doctors on staff here that evaluate people for that, and it really can be dangerous. Those bad habits can become very, very dangerous. So just be quite careful with that.
Another question that we received was, we sort of just spoke on this with the pandemic, which was a traumatic experience that everyone on the globe went through together. But do you think someone will turn to alcohol simply due to trauma-related issues?
Well, so, they did, this Dr. Vince Felitti out in San Diego area with Kaiser Permanente did a study in the 1980s. And it was the first time we've seen a definitive link between adverse childhood experiences and later problems. And those problems could be medical problems, and they could be mental health problems. And substance abuse, alcoholism are some of those problems. We know definitively that when people score high on the adverse childhood experiences quiz, their chances of becoming addicted or having other physical or mental health problems go way up. And it's great research, and it's on Wikipedia. Look under the ACE studies, ACE, adverse childhood experiences. We know that trauma can really affect people's sense of self. And we don't know if that's because it's the anxiety that goes up and then people need to self-medicate, or if there's some other action that's going on, but it's real. Trauma is a big driver of problematic mental health.
And not just in childhood. It doesn't have to have just been a traumatic or an adverse childhood experience. There's plenty of adults who will
Absolutely.
Experience a traumatic incident or a traumatic event, and then whether it's they go to alcohol or some type of harmful behavior as a coping mechanism, is quite common.
That's true.
Could you speak a bit though about children and adolescents and the we see people all the time, we see people from with all kinds of histories with substance use. People who really, like I said, the pandemic hit and that's when their problem exploded.
Yeah.
And also people who've been drinking every day since they were 14.
Yep. Yeah, so a bit of a story, and hopefully I'll keep it short. When I first came into the field, I noticed on many of the evaluations, they asked, at what age did you start, let's say, drinking alcohol, using drugs? And that seemed to be important. I didn't know why, and so I started asking around, and they said, well, there's a really high correlation between, at what age people start using and their chances of, having addiction. And I didn't know the answer to that, and then I heard, I was in Princeton, New Jersey, where I used to work, and we had a guest speaker come in, and he was talking about how they had at least solved a big piece of that. And the whole idea is Freud thought that there was a period of your life when your brain wasn't developing. He called this the latent period, right? And so that's, let's say, what do we say, 12 to 25, 15 to 25, something like that. And so that turns out that with fMRI, right, functional magnetic resonance imaging, when they take pictures of the brain and see it move, and we know that the brain actually is developing, and we actually know where the brain is developing during that time. Now, more specifically than that, I don't know, but we know it's in the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex is our most advanced part of the brain, right? That's the part, interestingly, that we're trying to shut down when we're drinking. But I digress. The truth is that's the part of our brain that tells us who we are, right? I find out who I am by who I think you think I am. Now, I'm not trying to confuse you, but that's how it works, right? I walk around and I see different people reacting to who I am, and because I have what are called mirror neurons in my brain, I can tell that you experience me in a certain way, and I start to get an idea of who I think I am based on who you think I am. However I'm coping, let me put it that way, however I'm coping during that period, I see myself as those coping mechanisms being part of who I am. Interestingly, as we grow up, people that, whatever behaviors they do during that period of time, and you often see people during this phase of their life trying a whole bunch of different behaviors. That's not a bad thing, right? Experimenting with new behaviors is a cool thing, it's a good thing. What works for me? Who am I? Are some of the big questions people are asking themselves. If you are coping in a certain way consistently, you'll begin to see yourself as the person that copes in this way. That begins to be part of your identity. If you're drinking a lot, or you're smoking a lot of weed, or you're playing a lot of soccer, or you're going to see yourself as a soccer player, or a weed smoker, or a partier, or a drinker, whatever it is. And that helps us understand why oftentimes you'll hear in recovery circles people say, I feel like the hole in the donut, right? And what does that mean? It means I don't know who I am anymore, right? I get sober, and then who am I? Well, because I'm not the partier anymore, and I have to develop a new identity. And who wants to develop a new identity? That's no fun.
Especially later in life. I mean, it's hard to. It's very hard. It's very
very
battling.
Hard. Yeah. But it's important that we understand this so that we can walk people through it, and we can help them understand that this is part of how it goes. Is when
it's common. It's not just you.
It is. It's all of us. We feel like we don't know who we are, and we're confused. And how do I do this? And then, fortunately, you start to see yourself in a different way, and you start to understand that you weren't just the partier, that you weren't just the person who drank a lot. You start to remember back to earlier, before you did those behaviors, and realize that you were somebody way before that. I know that sounds a little bit simplistic to even say that, but it really is true, because people feel a big loss of self when they first come into recovery. It can be a little depressing and cause some anxiety. So that's to be we should be paying attention to that. We're having some issues with things floating around.
You can tilt it. There you
I think this thing, if you tighten this knob on the lower.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah, does that make sense?
It does make sense, and it also kind of leads into alcohol is so common on college campuses. It is part of the college life. There are about 1,500 students in college who die from alcohol-related deaths every year. I mean,
seems like a lot.
It's a lot, and why are we not concerned about that? I mean, we are concerned about that, but if
I'm
there was
guessing
something,
people are quite concerned about it, in a lot of ways, but
it's still happening.
It's I heard somebody the other day talking about a hazing ritual they went through. It was just absolutely brutal, and certainly people could have died, and I think they actually ended up having people
die from hazing in Greek life.
Yeah.
One question we received before we went live was, why do so many students buy fake IDs? And I think that's it right there. I mean, it's if you need an ID to purchase alcohol, and you're not old enough, you don't have the ID. Many people in college, I think, feel that they need to obtain and consume and participate in the alcohol culture in order to continue developing their identity, to live in the mainstream community that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And it results in, obviously deaths, but a lot more. Yes, 1,500 people are dying every year, but I think we can't know this number, but far more people are having negative consequences and effects from. And as you said, the brain is